How's it going, everyone? There was some exciting news released last night in a press release by Jackalyptic Games. They have announced their rebrand from Jackalope Games and a focus on a new game based on the beloved Warhammer IP. They did not initially state whether or not it was going to be fantasy or 40k, but we later found some information leading it to look like it's most likely going to be 40k, which for me, a little bit of a bummer in terms of a potential MMO setting. But looking at what we have here in the press release, Jackalyptic Games announces rebrand and focus on new game based on the beloved Warhammer IP. A game based on the Warhammer IP is under development in partnership with Games Workshop. NetEase Games, I know, announced today that the unveiling of Jackalyptic Games, the rebranded studio formerly operating as Jackalope Games, led by industry veteran Jack Emmert. The rebranded Jackalyptic Games will have the full team that worked under the Jackalope name continue its focus on the development of top-tier PC and console games as a NetEase Games global studio. Additionally, Jackalyptic Games confirmed that its first project, a game based on a Warhammer IP created in close partnership with Games Workshop, is in early development. More details on Jackalyptic Games can be found at their website. Now, I know what a lot of you are thinking. You see that NetEase name and you immediately withdraw from any hope or possibility that you had of playing whatever this title is going to be. Reasons for that being is, for a lot of you, your most recent NetEase interaction was Diablo Immortal, which had one of the most questionable monetizations people felt. And I know that that's a big red flag for a lot of you. On the flip side, one of the more recent titles as well that they had that had very fair monetization was Naraka Blade Point. But outside of all that, there is an additional silver lining. In the information, they do state in May of 2022, NetEase opened its first US studio in Austin, Texas. It is called Jackalope Games and is led by Jack Emmert, a veteran of massive multiplayer online role-playing games who worked on titles including City of Heroes, Neverwinter, Star Trek Online, and DC Universe Online. They will work on PC and console games and operate independently from NetEase. So, Jackalope Games was renamed to Jackalyptic Games. So hopefully, though, this independent aspect of the studio working from NetEase will also pertain to their monetization decisions as well. We can hope, but that is the current silver lining around that, is that it is going to be functioning independently from NetEase. As someone who has molded my career developing expansive MMO stories, I'm proud to unveil that our first game in development at Jackalyptic Games will focus on the rich universes of Warhammer, said Jack Emmert. Bringing the deep lore of this IP to our game is a massive undertaking, and we are thrilled to work alongside Games Workshop to bring this vision to life. So, based on this, from Jack saying, referencing his career of developing expansive MMO stories, we can probably pretty safely assume and believe that this is going to be a Warhammer MMO, which is great. We love Warhammers. That's awesome. Throughout the game's development cycle, Jackalyptic Games will work closely with Games Workshop to engage their respective communities to gain insights and feedback on the game. Jack Emmert brings decades of MMORPG related experience to Jackalyptic Games and its new project, having previously led development on multiple high profile game franchises including City of Heroes, Neverwinter, Star Trek Online, and DC Universe Online. Jackalyptic Games is a NetEase Games debut game studio in the United States. It will operate independently and maintain creative autonomy in its game development. So again, they reference to being an independent functioning studio. It is going to maintain its creative autonomy. Hopefully that ends up carrying over into monetary decisions as well for the game. But, they go back to referencing Jack's extensive experience within the MMO space. So it really is looking like it's going to be an MMO, which is great. They just go into the rest of this to talk about Jackalyptic Games and Games Workshop and NetEase, the individual studios and companies themselves. But from this point, unfortunately for me, like we said at the beginning, it seems like this is going to be a 40k based MMO, and this is because there was a LinkedIn post found by a NetEase talent acquisition person who commented on saying that you'll be hard pressed to find a better team to take on the Warhammer 40k universe than the crew at Jackalyptic Games. I can't wait for this one. So this unfortunately gives into the idea that it's going to be a Warhammer 40k title. Now, I'm not saying a Warhammer 40k MMO can't work. I just personally would prefer a fantasy MMO again after the unfortunate demise that happened to Warhammer Online due to no fault of its own. But I also just think that a 40k MMO would be much more difficult and complex to incorporate into an MMO environment. When I think about 40k, there's such a wide array of artillery and weaponry at the disposal for that game. A lot of it being like there's a lot of really heavy ranged artillery, and so I would worry about the game becoming very ranged oriented, focusing on all the different guns and arsenal that there is with that, rather than the crazy different types of melee weapons that are also at the disposal in that game. But if they do it right, they do it right, and it's fantastic either way. I mean, there's a bunch of different really cool things that exist in the 40k universe, ranging from a bunch of different ranged gun tools, bunch of different crazy psionic melee weapons as well, and then there's a bunch of different magic in the 40k universe also. So there's really all sorts of different types of gameplay that can exist in the 40k universe. I personally would just prefer fantasy, just because I really enjoyed Warhammer Online and would love to see something along those lines again come back into the MMO space. The game does look like it's going to be in Unreal Engine 5 based on their own postings from their website, Jackalyptic website, for their hirings. They do state that their visual effect artists are going to be working with Unreal 5, so they're keeping up with the engine that everybody is going to be using in the coming years. But again, this game's in early development, so we're looking a few years out. The engine will maybe even be updated to Unreal 6 by the time this title releases. But that's all for now, everyone. I do appreciate you tuning in and listening to what we have to say. Exciting stuff in general, having a Warhammer IP. I love the Warhammer universe, 40k and fantasy. A little bit more fan of fantasy in terms of gameplay, but I did play 40k tabletop quite a bit and read some of the books, so love that there. Exciting overall, though. If you guys enjoyed the video, be sure to like and subscribe. Take care. Have a good one.